Welcome to this week's Riks Round Up by Riks Europe. My name is Rebecca, and panelists today, Peter Klepper and Elias Nordgren. Welcome back.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
So eventful in Europe, 3 elections, Romania, Poland and Portugal. So we will cover a little bit surrounding that, and a little bit about Keir Starmer's what's been described as a sharp turn on immigration, and also rumors of Britain moving towards Brussels. But we'll start with these elections. Peter, could you tell us what has Europe seen?
Well, we had some kind of an upset in Romania. You could call him national conservative candidate, Mr. Simeon. He failed to make it. Now, if you would tell that, before the election, that would not be big news. But the story is, of course, that there was already a first round to this presidential election, and it was annulled retroactively because the wrong person was seen to have been victorious, which, of course, is something deeply questionable, I think, from the standpoint of freedom and democracy. Also, because then the court based its judgment on the very dodgy, some say mafia-like secret services of Romania. Now, the original candidate of the right, Georgescu, he didn't run anymore. He was not allowed to. But then Mr. Simeon replaced him. He scored much better than expected in the first round, which gave his fans hope that he would also win the second round. Well, some were already saying that he had been a little bit overconfident ahead of this, so he failed. Still, however, convincing 46% of the public. In Poland and Portugal, we also saw a relatively decent victory for the right, which you can call, but. In Poland, it was only the first round of the presidential election. It's less important than in Romania because the president is not as powerful there than he would be in Romania. In Romania, this gentleman goes to the EU summits, for example. But in Poland, despite the fact that sort of the center-left candidate, which is supported by the Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, he came out first. If you add all the votes of the right, some people think that the right-wing candidate, who is supported by the PiS, the previous government party of Poland, that he may win in the second round. And then very briefly on Portugal, there the right-wing populist anti-immigration or immigration skeptic Chega party, they gained 4% points in the polls. So, this will complicate the life of the center-right prime minister that want to continue, Mr. Montenegro.
Yeah, and these elections are all very important because they show that the right-wing populism, as you might call it, nationalism, conservatism, is still on the rise, even if it's not necessarily turning out, de facto positive election results. As in Romania, for example, George Simeon actually lost that election. However, there's so many aspects that you can read into whatever happened in Romania. I mean, no matter the outcome, people from the other party, the other side, will doubtlessly accuse the winner of cheating, essentially, in one way or another. I mean, we saw what massive turnout there was for Georgescu when he was a controversial candidate who was still able to run. And we saw, of course, in the first round when Simeon way outperformed any of his competitors, including the now president-elect, whose name I've forgotten, but the current, actually, maybe, mayor of Bucharest, the liberal candidate, essentially.
Mr. Dan.
Right. It wasn't simpler. It wasn't more complicated than that. In Poland, I think this is a very important election simply for the reason being that the president is able to veto whatever the government, well, many of the things that the government is trying to do. And while the Law and Justice Party still has the presidential office, they can actually block many of the liberal or progressive reforms that the new government would otherwise be very pleased to implement. So this is why many conservative and right-wing polls are very concerned with losing this election. So I think it's a bigger deal than you could actually than what you painted out in my view, actually, Peter.
Yeah, sure.
This could potentially be more important even than Romania, because Poland is a major EU player. It's bound to become a net contributor in just a few short years to the European Union. It's going to become a major economic and military power in Europe as a whole. So it's very important, I think, that the right-wing sort of ambition to return Europe to tradition again does not lose Poland. It's very complicated, of course, for the right wing to actually win in Poland, since there's so many. The right wing vote is so split between the Law and Justice Party, and also then you have some even more radical populist movements all the way out to on the far right, as some people would describe it as. It's difficult for these people to actually unite under the same banner. And that's why I think that Poland is, Polish conservatives are not in a good seat right now. I don't think he will manage to eke out whatever percentage he needs to actually win over the left-wing candidate. So it's very unfortunate, but it just goes to show that it still goes to show that the right wing in Poland is very much strong. They're just disunited as it stands right now. And as for Portugal, it's kind of interesting that this is not a country that you associate with mass migration and with migrant-related issues, but Portugal has definitely become one of those types of countries in the past few years only, and it's very positive that a migration that a movement that's very critical of this mass migration has managed to grow so quickly and so become so strong in Portugal that it was actually able to do this very good showing in the recent elections there. Even though the center right actually managed to emerge victorious in that one, I mean, we're clearly looking at a very conservative voting base in Portugal, and it's making headway. And they just need to reach the point where the center right says to the nationalists and the anti-globalists that, okay, let's govern this country together, let's accomplish something. I think they're just a few short years away from doing that, because they probably don't have the same sort of stigma to nationalism in Portugal as they have in Western Europe, in Northern Europe, for example. I think Portugal is a very positive showing overall for nationalists.
And moving on to Keir Starmer has created headlines with what's described as a very sharp turn on immigration, and also recent headlines that Britain could be moving towards Brussels. But Ilya, starting off, what is it that Keir Starmer has done that's been described as a sharp turn on immigration?
Well, he's come out very strongly, at least rhetorically, against mass migration and against the deracination of British cities, where foreigners you're more likely to see a foreigner on a street in a British town than an actual Englishman. So this is something that speaks very closely to the hearts of most ordinary working class English people. And that's why they're voting generally for reform. And that's why they usually would have voted for the Tories. However, now that the Tories have actually turned out to actually be a pro-mass migration party, that's why the voters are fleeing that party in droves. But clearly, Keir Starmer is seeing an opportunity to sort of pick up these voters by appealing to this type of rhetoric. And to some extent, I'm not trying to be naive, but I think that he might actually be. He might actually somewhat be able to live up to the standard that he's setting on migration, actually, even though Labour is very much a migrant-dominated sort of party. They're essentially housing Islamists inside their party ranks. They have all of these extremely radical left-wing ideas still floating about in their party. But Keir Starmer was, for example, the one who managed to expel the Corbyn and essentially his communists and many of the woke elements, the overtly woke elements in Labour. He was actually able to have this party hoist up a British flag at the party congress. You know, that was unheard of under the Corbyn years, for example. So he's taking this sort of like centrist stance on many of these social topics, that he's trying to appear as an ordinary English politician that normal Englishmen can actually trust. Now, I don't trust him fully. Obviously, I think he's not good news for Britain. He's not good news for the world in general. But I think that he might be able to turn around this disastrous migration policy that the United Kingdom has unfortunately had under the years of the Tories. I mean, it's hard to do worse than the Tories did on migration. I mean, they were very much dead set on essentially net zero English people living in English cities by 2050 or something like that. That's sort of the policy that they were going for, and obviously a very sort of calculated affair, trying to steal some voters from the now quickly growing Reform Party, but still something that I think comes from the heart for many of the older Labour establishment. They can't be happy with whatever is happening to Britain right now either. Is my judgment, at least. And then
if you look at the U-turn that Starmer is pursuing, it's indeed because of the pressure of Nigel Farage and Reform. And interestingly, Keir Starmer, he announced that the UK would try to negotiate return hubs for illegal migrants, so people that sneak in illegally. If they just stay on UK territory, it's very difficult to send them back to their to their home. But if you do what Australia has done, which is you send them to a third country, a return hub, then it's actually possible, if only because people will no longer pay a lot of money to human smugglers, because they know that they won't end up in their destination. They will end up in some kind of a return hub, and they will only get asylum if they have the right to asylum, and not in that case in Australia, but somewhere else, right? So, and that was the Rwanda plan. The Tories had the Rwanda plan to, try to make this happen. But inside the Tory party, there was a lot of obstruction of that plan. And there were the courts, the British courts, the European Court of Justice. So it didn't happen. And Starmer actually, he killed off the deal with Rwanda. So the question is, will he now call the Rwandan government again to try to, continue? It's in a way, it's quite amusing to see how reality is forcing the British political class to finally do something about the migration chaos that we're seeing similarly to the rest of Europe, by the way. And interestingly, also in Brussels, in UK, there is a summit between Britain and the EU on reinvigorating the relationship between both, and there it looks like Starmer hasn't actually gotten the memo from Nigel Farage, because I mean, he's making massive concessions to the EU. The big trump card that the UK has is fisheries access. And after Brexit, it was decided that European fishermen would largely keep the fisheries access that they had until 2026. They or at least they would still get a sizable part of the UK fishing waters to be able to fish there. Britain has now said, according to this new deal, that for 12 years the current arrangement will be extended. And in return, nothing much will be granted by the European Union. The EU will give a bit more access to the agricultural market, but in return, Britain will have to copy-paste all kinds of EU rules over which it has no say, which will also complicate attempts by the UK to conclude trade deals with America and other jurisdictions. So look, Starmer is slowly, U-turning on certain things, but I'm personally very skeptical. His heart is not in it. He doesn't want this, so I think we'll have to wait for a new government in the UK.
I believe that's all we have time for today. Thank you, Peter Klepper and Elias Nordgren.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, as always, for watching Riks Europe.